Artificial intelligence is transforming the way we live, work, and connect with the world. From smart assistants to advanced robotics, AI offers incredible benefits, but it also raises serious questions about ethics, privacy, and the future of jobs. Let's talk to Mallory Knodel to explore both the promises and the pitfalls of this powerful technology. Mallory Knodel is a prominent public interest technologist and human rights advocate specializing in internet governance, cybersecurity, and digital policy. She currently serves as the executive director of the Social Web Foundation, where she leads efforts to promote ethical and inclusive technology development.
Welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
When we look at artificial intelligence, firstly, maybe let's get into what really is AI, because a lot of people are talking about AI these days, and what it can do, and the good and the bad. But what exactly is artificial intelligence?
That's such a good question. I think people are confused for good reason. It's very much an umbrella tech term that means a lot of different things. I also think it's fair to say it's a marketing term. So it doesn't always mean something specific in terms of technology. It's just meant to elicit a sense that the thing that you're discussing is new in a lot of ways. I, as a technologist, often mentally replace the term artificial intelligence with just software. It is our modern day software that is very data driven. And so that's maybe the key thing to focus on, is that it's data driven. It's based on past data. It's based on insights from data. It's trying to infer something that we already know from data sources and to generate something new, or to make predictions and that sort of thing. So in a sense, I think it's okay if we don't really think about AI as something specific, because it's everything from self-driving cars to image generation to financial risk speculation. Like, there's just so many technologies that fall under AI. It doesn't really mean any one specific.
It's a wide area. But how safe is AI? Because since it covers a wide, vast area, be it in the economy and almost day-to-day life these days. How safe is AI technology? Do we have the laws and the safety net when AI is used by various parties?
These are also really important things to consider, because it does feel like AI is very new and it came very quickly. All of a sudden, everybody was talking about AI, and these technologies seem to come from nowhere. At the same time, though, AI has been around for actually decades. Researchers have been trying to study these different methods and to improve software in a lot of ways using data. But it's just because their methods have so rapidly changed. They had a breakthrough, essentially. And also, a lot of these then technologies were made into products that could be democratized, so everyone can now use them. So in a way, I don't want to panic folks too much, because I think that the democratization of this technology is actually really great, and we shouldn't be telling people they shouldn't use it, because it is actually something that's accessible now to more people, and that could be a very good thing. But to get to your question about some of the harms, I think the harms can maybe fall into potentially two categories. So one is based on that this is very data driven. So because it's driven by our data, the obvious issue is privacy issues. So we and our data and the data we produce every day throughout our lives is being used by companies to build these products. And so that can have some issues with our own feelings of privacy, of being surveyed, also of the security to us if we our data is leaked and so on. I think there's also then this crossover point about the different kinds of harms with respect to data, and then also the way that prediction is made as maybe an uncertain or unverifiable, unaccountable by the technology. So you have the data harms and you have the generation harms. In between the two, I think, are issues of bias. So some harms related to bias and discrimination, where the data might already be biased against you, therefore the product or the generation or the things that come out of that product are then also biased. And then so talking then about this second bucket of things that are coming out because it's not necessarily an accountable technology, misinformation and disinformation. So the ability to create on a wider scale very quickly a lot of fake news, deep fakes, manipulating information that's already out there. There are issues potentially with, intellectual property. If you're a creative or an artist, something might be generating something based on your past data, which is both like a data issue and a generation issue that's unaccountable. And I think just generally we feel like there's just a lot of ethical concerns with respect to use of this. When is it appropriate to use these tools over people, for example? And then the last one that I think folks are really talking about a lot is harms to the environment, given how very resource intensive it is to generate all of this from huge piles of data. It does have a sustainability impact.
I guess some of the specific areas that you touched on, misinformation and how maybe even AI is being used these days a lot on social media. We see influential people, politicians being AI being used to create fake news, fake or misleading details. How does one deal with such sort of misinformation when it comes to the use of AI? I mean, there are no laws, it seems, when this is put out, especially on social media.
It's a very difficult question. And I think that a lot of the harms we've talked about do play out most in social media spaces. One is because that is where we all are a lot. It's where our data is, and it's also where these products are being built. And so for some of the more nefarious uses of generative AI for the purposes of manipulation, this is where you're going to find this. So it's not necessarily that it's inherently an issue with social media, but it is where it's a site where a lot of these harms are going to crop up. And I think the response has to be complex. I think part of the reason why it's so compelling to view or to believe manipulated images or text and things like that is we're all searching for new and novel content. So this allows that content to be made at scale. And there's at the same time we don't have a lot of experience with trusted institutions on social media. Social media is not a space where you go for trusted sources of information, and that's been a trend already. The best places to go are journalists, news publications, official sources, but social media has trained us to value other kinds of data and other kinds of sources of information. So that's an issue, that's a trust issue between institutions and people that need to be rectified in any case. And I think generative AI just makes that even more important. There are some technical mechanisms to sort of identify things that are fake, but that's still pretty nascent.
But shouldn't even social media institutions like, for example, X or Meta, shouldn't they also have some sort of restrictions on how AI is used by third parties? Like, let's say, for instance, an individual goes on Facebook and Meta and or rather X and puts an AI generated image out there or a video which goes viral. I mean, you see some of these videos these days, they're getting like millions and millions of hits, right? And yet there would be those who would know that this is fake, but then at the same time there are people who might not be much aware, and they might assume that this is actually fact. Shouldn't there be some sort of restrictions that should be imposed on that sort of content that is put out there?
I think for the reasons why this is maybe a complicated issue, and I can give a few examples, the best thing that social media companies can do is actually give the users more information about where that video came from and the context for it. So that's like helping to build trust in the content that we're viewing no matter what, by giving the user more signals about where it came from. So some reasons why we wouldn't want to take down everything that's auto-generated, right? It could be fictional. It could be a short film that a university student has made that's telling a story. Is it a real story? No. Is it generated? Yes. But we still wouldn't want to take it down because it's probably beautiful art. Another thing we wouldn't want to do is take down protests. or other kinds of social commentary. So a lot of us don't have the resources to have a full-on studio like this or other kinds of things. So maybe we use AI generation to get our message out. And the message is coming from a movement or a social protest. And so to take down those things automatically would be to stifle sort of free speech and exercising one's ability to organize online. So there are many different reasons why we wouldn't want to just blanket take down anything that's AI generated, but the limitations are important. And I think the best way to put limits on that is to give the user or the person viewing it more details so that they also can report things that they find very objectionable or that violate community guidelines or that just are simply straight up lying and trying to mislead and manipulate. And then I do think that there's a relationship there between things that are highly political, let's say during political campaigns and things like that, where it would be appropriate to try to create very specific terms under which the content should just be taken down because it's very clearly trying to have an adverse impact on like the social compact and other kinds of dynamics in the public square.
And as an expert in human rights and digital technology and human rights, I guess this wouldn't it be also a sort of a violation of one's human rights when you use AI technology to, give out misinformation about an individual? Wouldn't that be a violation of that individual's human right as well?
Certainly. And this comes about a lot with more marginalized groups, women, other kinds of folks who are in the public eye. There's a lot of research that's been done on this. And so one of these phenomenon is, of course, it's very related to sexual violence. So the non-consensual sharing of intimate images is one thing, but then actually generating these that from using AI is becoming a real phenomenon. So that's an example of harm that is very specific to a certain population. We know that it's used to enact violence and to harm people. So that is an example of something where social media community guidelines could explicitly say, none of this content would ever be allowed. There's no exception to it. And I think that is what we're seeing. So that's, and I'm sure there are others out there where, we can identify a very specific harm that's happening using generative AI. It's a tactic that's being used to silence, to enact violence in the real world and the online world, and that those are absolutely not allowed on platforms.
And how can countries like Sri Lanka, because AI is still something relatively new in Sri Lanka, being a country that's still developing, how can AI technology, in your opinion, be used to help boost the local economy? Sri Lanka is still recovering from a serious economic crisis, and the digital world has not really spread right across Sri Lanka yet. It's still a process that's taking place. And I guess it's the same with countries like even in parts of India, Nepal, Bangladesh. How can AI technology help boost the local economy and maybe even help expand digital technology?
This is such a nice question too, because I think it does speak to the real moment we're in. It wasn't that long ago that we were in this brand new revolution called the internet, right? And people started thinking about how can we participate in this? How can we use this for businesses? How can we use it to improve government? We're in a similar situation with AI. It's no different. It's a new technology and it's becoming ubiquitous. And there are many, many people that are thinking this exact same thing. How can this benefit my community? How can this benefit my government and generate businesses? So I really hope that folks are willing to engage with it, to learn about it. There are lots of new skills and programs opening up in computer science departments and universities and things like that. I think it's very worth getting acquainted with. I will say there's a caution there that there are a lot of different products out there that sort of tend to overpromise. Again, remembering at the very beginning of this section, we were talking about how AI is kind of a hype term. It's sort of a productization of a set of technologies. So just because something says it's AI doesn't mean it's going to be good or even better. In fact, in a lot of ways, it can sometimes mean it's less good. Just like an AI generated image is kind of less good in a lot of qualitative ways than a real photograph. Be cautious and don't always believe everything that's on the label. Do your due diligence and look into it. But, there's no shortage of cool stuff out there that people are making. And that could be any one of your viewers right now.
Finally, I also want to ask you about this fear among a lot of people that, the introduction of AI and the expansion of digital technology is posing a risk to the reliance on human technology. I mean, humans themselves.
Yeah.
People feel that they might start losing jobs, that unemployment might grow because big companies will start depending more on AI and digitalization. Is that a real threat in your opinion?
I think it can be in some areas a threat, but at that institution or companies or organizations' peril. That the idea that we would be able to fully replace human intelligence or human people power with AI in some respects is not really accurate. Again, like these tools really overpromise. I think a better way of thinking about this, if people are considering how to maybe be more efficient and with the use of AI, is how can the AI improve the performance of the people who are already in these positions? How can it change the relationship we have as employees and employers, to maybe bringing in more efficiency where it makes sense? I certainly love that I don't have to do some kinds of menial tasks anymore, that there's a way to kind of bring in AI to take that sort of boring, more computer, it's better, it's a task better suited for a computer anyway. It's just kind of easier to do that now. I think that's a great thing, and it makes the current employees work better and happier because they're not doing those technologies anymore. So yeah, we want to think about supplementing existing people power and human intelligence with AI, not replacing it. It's not a viable approach, actually, and I don't think it will give people what they want. If they're truly trying to replace human power, then I think what they're really doing is finding austerity measures, and taking an austerity measure against your whole company tends to not go well. So think of AI when it's replacing people as an austerity measure. When you're using AI to supplement their work, you're really boosting productivity.
Well, it was really great talking to you, Mallory. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insight. And hopefully, yes, AI hopefully would be something positive and not be used or seen negatively.
That's the hope. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you today about this.
My pleasure. Thank you once again. And that's all the time we have for you for Let's Talk for this week. Till next time, stay safe.